Welcome to Project Handlebar, where we learn photography by teaching. In Project Handlebar, we have two rules. Rule number one, you must talk about Project Handlebar. Rule number two, if this is your first time with Project Handlebar, pop over to our Facebook group, say hi. Today's project is about refraction. Refraction is a change in direction of a wave, most commonly observed in light. So when it passes through a medium, like water, it can actually change direction, and when you see light traveling through water, you can get some really interesting effects, like the opposite of what you would think. So that's what we're going to play with today. Now, we're going to use this glass of water to create our refraction using the available light from the window. I put the flower in there just for some extra added interest, but the focus is not on the flower. The focus is on the glass and the water. So if I move my black foam board out of the way, you notice there's now more light showing up on my surface here. By the way, the surface that I'm using is a glossy white plexiglass, but there are a lot of things you could use. You can use a mirror, you can use a piece of glass on top of another object. Keep in mind that a clear piece of glass is going to take on whatever color is beneath it. So if you lay it on something white, it'll be white. Lay it on something black, it'll be black. But in this case, I just have a white piece of glossy plexiglass that I bought off of Amazon a while back. Now if you notice, you get a really interesting pattern down here where the water refracts the light and then it switches direction and begins to spread out again right here. But I feel that image is just a little too boring. So that's why I have this black piece of foam board called a black card, and I want the light to just create this shadow right along here. I want to get it just a little bit closer to the glass. And if you notice, the shadow and the reflection actually change as the foam board comes in due to that refraction process. I can even narrow it down to almost nothing if I wanted to. What I'm going to do though, because this is sort of messing up my light, is I'm going to turn off the lights from the camera lights. One moment. Okay, so now we can only see what's on that white surface. We've got a nice line of light in between the black card where the light's starting to spread out and the shadow from the glass. Alright. I could shoot this with a phone if I wanted to. I'm going to shoot it with my camera, my favorite camera, and I'm going to use a 50mm lens. And I'm going to try f1.8, but I feel like that'll leave too much of it out of focus, so I may end up bumping that up. We'll see what that looks like. I am going to bump up that f-stop just a little bit. I'm going to go with an f4, since I am so incredibly close. Okay. Nice. Okay. Simple project. Couple things to take note here. When I cleaned the glass, I cleaned it with lens cleaner. You can also use Windex. It does a really good job of getting rid of any dishwasher film or fingerprints. I do recommend washing it again after you're done using it for this project before you drink out of it. But it does make a nice crystal clear piece of glass, and then I handled the glass with cloth the entire time. Oh, preferably something without a lot of lint. I used a linen napkin, and that'll help keep the glass nice and clean. And then if you notice, I poured the water in using a measuring cup, and it's not because I was really measuring the water. I wanted to prevent the water from splashing up too much on the sides and creating droplets on the sides. One thing that I just thought of, it would have been really cool if I had thought to use carbonated water, because that would have created some really interesting bubbles on the inside, maybe a little bit of fizz. Might have looked good, might have not, would have made it interesting. But if you want to try it, go for it. Okay, so we've got our photo pulled up here in Adobe Camera Raw, which is a Photoshop plugin that works very similar to Lightroom. When you try to open a raw image file in Adobe Photoshop, this is how it comes up in Camera Raw. So you can make all of your raw adjustment settings before taking it into Photoshop for all the other stuff. I like to shoot in RAW. The file holds a lot more information, so you can do some really powerful adjustments to it. You can also shoot in RAW on camera phones now if you don't know how. Just look it up on Google. I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. But let's take a look and see what we can do here. I don't think the exposure needs to be messed with. Contrast kind of does some things I don't really want it to do, so I'm going to leave the contrast alone right now. What I am going to do is lift up the shadows to bring out some of the information on the flowers up here, although not all of the emphasis is on the flowers. Like I said before, the emphasis is actually on the glass and the water. The flower is just a point of interest. I want to bring down the blacks to make the blacks a little richer. I'm kind of looking around this area when I do this to see what it does, but I also want to keep an eye on the image as a whole. There we go. Alright, now do I want it in color or black and white? I kind of like the black and white. The black and white's a bit more moody, a bit more contrasty, which is kind of what we're going with this. And you can really see the refraction that I was talking about, the refraction of the light, the bottom of the glass, and then how it spreads out as you go up. And remember, when I was moving that black card, that black foam board back and forth, you could really see the effect that it had on the light and the shadow right here. And I think I dialed it in right where I want it. As I zoom in here though, I can definitely see some areas that might need a little touching up once we get it into Photoshop. I don't really think we need any other adjustments right now. Although if I'm going to keep it monochrome, I'm not worried about colors or split toning right now. I can mess with the black and white mix, but there's just not a lot of... Okay, so I can bring out the detail in the flowers just a little bit more without affecting the rest of the photo. I like that, so I'm going to leave that there. Okay, I think we have this where we want it, so I'm going to go ahead and open the image in Photoshop now. Okay, here in Photoshop, the first thing I want to do is fix those little spots down here. So what I'm going to do is hit Control J once I select the background here to create a duplicate layer. So if I make any mistakes, I can mask it out or go back to the original background layer. Basically, this is just a non-destructive way to edit. I like to edit non-destructively so I can go back and fix things maybe that I did a long time ago in the editing process without having to undo everything in between. So I've created a new layer here, layer 1, and now I'm just going to zoom in here. I'm going to use the spot healing tool, very low brush size. Just trying to work out some of this dirtiness in here. There we go. Didn't work out too well, did it? That's not working at all. Alright, so if I'm not having a whole lot of luck there, I'm going to move to the clone stamp tool. And I might reduce the flow here to about 50% just to see how it looks. Select an area right next to it. And no, I'm not happy with the way that looks either.
Alright, so now I'm not using the spot healing tool. I'm going to use just the regular healing brush tool. It's kind of like the clone stamp tool. It's kind of a combination between the spot healing tool and the clone stamp tool. So I will select an area right next to this. And there, that actually looks a lot better. Just clean up some of these other areas. I have to blend this in just a little bit. I'm going to use my color mixer brush. Kind of blend that in just a little bit. That clicking you hear is me using my bracket keys to increase or decrease the size of my brush tool. I think that is all the spots I wanted to get rid of. I'm happy with everything else. Okay, so now I've got a nice dark Moody image, got it cleaned up. What I'm going to do next is add a little bit of noise. Let's see what Dust and Scratches does. Play with the sliders, see what they do. That's the only way to learn sometimes. I really see a whole lot of difference there. You can see the difference around the edges of the glass. And that is not having the effect that I want, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel the Dust and Scratches. Let's try a different type of noise. Let's just say add noise. This is just regular film grain type noise. It's a little too noisy for me. Maybe about there. Sometimes subtle is best. So go ahead and accept that noise. Now I think we have a very pretty image. It's nice, moody. The emphasis is definitely right here on the glass. Flower itself is just to add a little bit of extra interest there. But I would hang this in my living room. Absolutely. Refraction just makes it a lot more fun, that lighting that you get. You kind of wonder what's going on back here. We all know it's a window. Tells a fun story too. But I think the story is very subjective. It all depends on who's looking at it. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and save that and leave that right here.
Please remember to like and subscribe. Click the thumbs up. It helps other people learn about Project Handlebar. Click the bell if you want to make sure never to miss a video. And I'll see you next time. Until then, stay creative, my friends.